Well, shalom, shalom. This is Barbara, and I just want to welcome everyone to the New Moon conference call. Today is the first day of the 10th month, and actually we're in 2019 if you're listening to this recording. We just want to welcome all our family and friends that are here today. We do have a lot of our families here. I'm hearing a little bit of background. I'm going to go over and see if I can figure out where that's at. But we just want to invite you, if you are listening to the recording, to come and join us for Sabbath or New Moon calls. We invite you to go to our website, lunarsabbathday.com, for a lot of material there, all scripture-based about the Creator's calendar. And also, if you go to the events page, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and see our phone numbers and the internet connection to connect with us for Sabbath and New Moon, because we do all feel like we are separated from brethren. We're all over the United States and the world, but the Father knows where we are, and He is the Good Shepherd. That's what we were just talking about in our worship time. He is our Good Shepherd, and He gathers us together, and we hear His voice because He's the Shepherd. So today we'll start our discussion about the original timekeeping system, and today's topic is New Moon Day, dawn after conjunction. And this article is also on our website. A lot of people want to know, how do you know when New Moon Day is? And you can find out dawn after conjunction. You can not only look in the heavens and learn, but it's on the computer also when conjunction happens, and then we see the next daylight, the next dawn, as New Moon Day, because conjunction actually only takes place for just a few minutes. So we're going to go through this article a little bit today, and the article is from World's Last Chance, but we do have it on our website too. So in some of our family and friends on the internet here may see New Moon Day a little bit differently than I do or some of us do. And that is the way it is right now. We're all coming off the Gregorian calendar and learning about the Father's calendar. And I find this to be the most accurate way for me to know when New Moon Day is. So, okay, sadly, we do not find in Scripture a clear explanation of exactly how to reckon New Moon Day. In recognition of this fact, we must clearly and prayerfully sort through every piece of evidence available before drawing any conclusions. Even in the absence of what is perceived to be overwhelming proof, we must be faithful to what we have before us, and we must be willing always to follow the weight of evidence wherever it may lead. So the reasoning behind the method of dawn after conjunction. And I'll show you a picture again. I'm hearing a little background noise. It might even be Christina. Christina said she would help me read, but maybe you might want to mute Christina till it's time to read, because I'm hearing
I was muted.
Okay, well, I'm hearing something. I don't know. I'm trying to scroll down here. I don't see. Okay, yes, if anyone that's on the line, if you would hit *6 to mute your phone, and then *6 to unmute. And that'll help. There, that took care of some of it right there. Thank you. So, okay, I wanted to show a picture of the phases of the moon so you can kind of get it in your mind what we're talking about. New moon is a totally dark moon, and conjunction is just a few minutes, and then it starts building light. And then by the first Sabbath, it will be at the first quarter, announcing the night before the Sabbath announcing. It's not always 100% accurate, because now it's instead of always being every 7 days, it's every 7.3 days or so, but it's the most accurate way for me at this time. So the reasoning behind the method: the moon begins to illuminate immediately after conjunction. We cannot see it, though, until the sun sets, because the moon is observed by the greater light of the sun. The fact that we cannot see the moon immediately after conjunction, however, does not negate the fact that it has already began a new revolution with new illumination. Often, the first visible crescent will be seen on the evening of new moon day, displaying her new light to the viewer. The reason for making the day after conjunction new moon day, as opposed to the actual day that conjunction takes place, is because a day cannot simultaneously be part of the old month and part of the new month. Therefore, the first dawn after conjunction takes place as the beginning of the new month. So, Christina, would you like to read the next 3 paragraphs? She agreed to read, and we'll maybe read those and then maybe stop for some discussion. So if you're hearing anything, jot down a note so that we can talk about it in a couple of minutes here. And there are 3 paragraphs there, Christina. The necessity of keeping Jehovah's holy days in their season, Leviticus 23:4.
Sure. These are the feasts of Jehovah, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons, appointed times. See Leviticus 23:4. The divine command to keep Jehovah's holy days at their appointed times cannot truly be met and obeyed except through the first dawn after conjunction method. We firmly believe that there is one Sabbath day to be kept by the whole world, and that the whole world is to keep Jehovah's feast on a specified day, and not over several days. The first dawn after conjunction method uniquely and miraculously unites the entire world on one solar revolution. Here is how it works. When reckoning the dawn after conjunction as the beginning of new moon day, the entire world will be united in observing the same day. While it might appear that 2 different days are being observed when communicating the dates via the Gregorian calendar, in reality, everyone on earth will be observing the new moons, Sabbaths, and feast days during the same solar revolution, each beginning their day with the same 24-hour period. In other words, all countries of the world will experience the arrival of his Sabbath and feast days within one 24-hour solar revolution. Thus, the whole world is truly unified in beginning his holy days within one 24-hour period. Using this method, a divinely appointed worldwide date line is established each month by the Creator. The first visible crescent method for reckoning new moon day, however, cannot consistently unite the world in beginning the feast in the same 24-hour revolution. Scripture commands us to observe the Sabbath, not a Sabbath. Does it then make sense that there would be multiple Sabbaths in the same week? Does it make sense for different locals to celebrate the Sabbath 48 hours apart? Only by reckoning the day after conjunction as new moon day can everyone on earth consistently observe one Sabbath day.
Okay, thank you, Christina. And we already covered quite a bit there with conjunction. Dawn after conjunction can unite the whole world in one revolution for the Sabbath day. And well, any comments so far? Anybody? Just feel free to comment, or objections are fine too.
Well, I have something to add. Just a thought. I was deep into research about how the ancient Hebrews observed New Moon Day, and some of them said on their different websites that it took several men for a couple days before the new moon would actually come to be, that they would wait on top of the mountains and that they would look for the first sign of the first crescent, and that they would call that the new moon day. That's just what I read. Not
and
saying it's true or not.
Yeah, that's what we learned, and we did learn, I think this would be in the article, that some of that came from out of Babylon when they saw the crescent as new moon day. But in this article, in the way I see it, and you guys all can jump in with your thoughts too, but the sliver, when you see it, is going to announce the work week. And a little bit further in this article, you'll see that if you go by just a sliver, well, the whole world can't unite on 24-hour period, but that would throw the geometry of the moon off. The first quarter would be too convex, too big. It would throw off the first quarter being perfectly straight up and down. But anyways, any other comments before we go further? Because it will explain it a little bit better as we go.
This is Ellie. I guess I'm a little confused. I've always been confused about exactly what is conjunction. So, you know, what is being read so far? I have the article in front of me, but I almost read it as if it's like what Christina said. What she just read was, it's the first sliver that you see, that is the beginning of the new month. And that's not what you're saying? I mean,
no,
yeah, go ahead, Barbie.
No, well, when I was in the Messianic groups, it was the first sliver, but I've learned that, well, for number one, if you just look at the phases, the first sliver will throw your phases off. If you already have light on the moon, your first quarter phase will be too big. But by dawn after conjunction, it puts the quarter phases, you can't really see the picture up here on the screen, but I'll put it back up here. But with new moon being totally dark, your phases are perfectly straight up and down on the first quarter and full on the next one. But we'll just go forward and read a little bit longer. But no, we don't go by the sighting of the crescent for new moon day. Years ago I did, but that's a good place to start. And maybe you'll learn a different way, but we go by dawn after. I go by dawn after conjunction, and maybe some of you go a little differently. But the consistency, we'll go forward, and everybody else, just keep your thought and ask your question in a minute. We'll go through about 3 more paragraphs. Consistency, beginning the day at dawn as opposed to sunrise. Okay, this is maybe another controversial subject, but beginning the day at dawn. Okay, a biblical day begins at dawn, at the earliest introduction of light, and ends at dusk with the complete absence of light. In a consistent pattern, the month begins with the first dawn immediately after the moon becomes illuminated, and ends when the moon is completely void of light at the conjunction. And in parentheses it says, not being able to see the moon's initial illumination does not change the reality that it is taking place. The light of the first visible crescent is only evidence of what began taking place immediately following the moon's conjunction with the sun. So the moon, Kodesh, Strong's 2320. The Hebrew word for new moon is Kodesh, H2320, which is also translated as month. Kodesh appears in Scripture more than 270 times, yet it is not used even once to denote seeing something, like i.e. the visible moon, the crescent, etc. Rather, the Hebrew word signifying the physical observable moon is Yarach, H3391, H3393, and H3394. and I'm probably saying that wrong, but Yerach, it's Y-E-R-A-C-H, is translated 28 times as moon and 13 times as month, but is never used to signify new moon. And there's a note here, there is a Hebrew word for crescent, which is different, and that's Sahorium, S-A-H-A-R-O-N-I-M. Sure, I'm saying that wrong. And the number for that is H7720. So what they're saying, the word, Hebrew word for new moon and month is totally different than the Hebrew word for crescent. However, it is used exclusively in connection to heathen idolatry in Judges 8:21 and 28 and Isaiah 3:18. And that word is never associated with the new moon or even the month throughout Scripture. So that's a pretty good point, that the Hebrew word for month, Kodesh, or for new moon, is never the same as the Hebrew word for crescent. And, you know, the story in Judges is when Gideon took those camels, he won a war, and they took the crescents off the camels, and that's, I think, one of the places where that's mentioned. And then they did have some idolatry going on with those crescents and things. They took off those heathen camels from that war. But any comments about the Hebrew word for moon being Kodesh, being differently than the Hebrew word for crescent, and it is never used as new moon or month in Scripture?
That is very good. I really appreciate what you just showed us. I've heard of that word. I pronounce it Chodesh, but it doesn't matter. But you're right. I have read the difference between the Chodesh and the Yerach. So that is very true. I've got it right here in my Jeff Benner's Ancient Hebrew Dictionary.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
So I uphold that.
Okay, good. All right, well, we'll go forward then. So by going back then, it would be the Hebrew word for new moon and month is Kodesh or Hodesh, and it's not applying to a crescent. So, Christine, would you read Psalms 81:3, the introduction there, and then there's a paragraph after that.
Okay. Psalm 81:3. Blow the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, H3677. On our solemn feast day, H2282. Psalm 81:3, the King James Version. H3677, Kese, apparently from H3680, properly fullness or the full moon, that is, its festival, time appointed. Strong's Greek and Hebrew Dictionary. H2282, Hag. This word refers especially to a feast observed by a pilgrimage. The New Strong's Expanded Dictionary of Bible Words. Psalm 81:3 then tells us two things. A trumpet, shofar, was to be sounded at the new moon. 2, a trumpet, shofar, was to be sounded at the full moon at the time of a pilgrimage feast. In context, Psalm 81 is talking about Israel's exodus from the land of Egypt. It seems only reasonable to conclude, then, that the pilgrimage feast being referred to here is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which begins on the 15th day of the lunar month, on the same day that the children of Israel were led out of Egypt. Some have suggested that Psalm 81:3 is referring to the Feast of Trumpets, New Moon Day, and the Feast of Tabernacles, beginning on the 15th, in the 7th month. This seems unlikely, given the context of the entire chapter. However, even this interpretation places the full moon at the end of the 2nd week on the 15th of the month. There is no way to honestly reconcile this verse with the first visible crescent methodology for reckoning New Moon Day, as the first visible crescent method generally places the full moon on the 13th, 14th of the month. Reckoning the day after conjunction as New Moon Day, however, places the full moon on the 14th, 15th of the month, which is in harmony with Psalm 81:3.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Christine. And so, blowing the trumpet at the time of new moon and at the pilgrimage feast. And we just did a YouTube about that. If you are listening to the recording, it was his new moon, full moon, and we discussed that the new moon is not possibly the full moon and number one, this verse that people use was at the Passover time when it would have been a fully lit moon. But what we're talking about right now is it would not have been a crescent moon at the beginning of a new moon. Any comments so far, anybody, or questions? Okay, there's just a little bit more here. Okay, go ahead. I hear you coming on.
I've got the phone set up now as an electrode, so maybe you can hear me a little better. My question is and I'm curious about the sighting. He's comparing the conjunction versus the sighting as a way of doing it. And when he talks about sighting, is he saying the thought is that someone is sighting and declaring that to be the new month, the beginning of the month, as soon as it's sighted, and then you start your month from that point. So your first Sabbath would be 7 full days later, or I have to think about that, yes.
Okay, well, you're a little muffled now, but I think I heard you say, would the sighting be the beginning of the week? But for me, the sighting, I think what you were saying, the sighting is the beginning of the week, because it would be day 2 when you see the sliver, for it to be the quarter phase announcing the Sabbath on day 8. I guess, is that kind of what you were saying? Because it was kind of muffled. If you see, the sliver here would be the night of New Moon Day. Like tonight, we should see a sliver. And then tomorrow would be day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on day 7, that night, or that evening, straight above, we should see the quarter phase announcing the Sabbath. But I couldn't hear you very good, but I think it's...
I'm going to go back to my to the internet mic. We're probably on a limited bandwidth here, and I apologize for that. Can you hear me well enough?
I'm hearing you better. You're louder.
Okay. We'll go with this arrangement for right now. The way I've understood many people that are sighting, and I don't know how many, but the sighters, if I'm not mistaken, will see the crescent and declare that the close of the new moon period. They don't, in fact, it's kind of a terminology issue, is if the sighters, if I'm understanding this correctly, don't have a new moon day, they have a new moon period or a new moon festival. And so when they see the crescent, they declare the day that just ended is the last of the new moon festival, and the day that will be ahead of them will be the first work day. And if I've understood this correctly, there is some overlap. Sometimes it doesn't overlap. In other words, there are certain times when a sighter and a conjunctionist will agree, they'll come to the same conclusion about what day the Sabbaths are on for the coming period. But apparently the conjunctionist, I think, will be a little bit earlier, like maybe 50, 60, 70% of the time they will be earlier, and the citers will be later. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I heard what you were saying, that some of the citers would see the new moon as the crescent as the close of New Moon Day in the beginning of the first week. But I don't wait to see that crescent to know. That's a confirmation for me. But maybe somebody else has a comment or a question to go along with your comment.
Barbie, it's Keith.
Go ahead, Keith.
I caught most of what Pete said. That's basically my understanding, because we have to remember what it would be like without charts. So they did have to look at that, and then when they see it, they say that day that just ended, they say that would be the end of that would be the confirmation. That's why sometimes the 2-day new moon, because they look for it that first night and they don't see it. So then they say, oh, well, tomorrow is the new, must be the end of the new moon. And then they look for it the second night, and then they do see it and say, yep, tomorrow is the first work day. And I'd say that's what is happening in 1 Samuel 20.
Right.
So
anybody?
I'm not taking any fight, but
yeah, thank you, Brother Keith. And anybody else have a comment or a question or any of the answers? I mean, we don't all have the answers. And some of us live in places where you aren't going to see the crescent or something, but you might be able to see that first quarter phase announcing the Sabbath, and then it would correct you back again. But there are ways, and Brother Pete and Sally were asking me about this last week, to check for the conjunction by using physical. You could use your fingers. There's charts on that. And also by the degrees, holding up a staff. And we have those articles on our website. The conjunction that divides us, and the staff and conjunction, and the staff and conjunction. Brother Arthur Porter in Alaska explained how you can hold a staff and know the degrees to know when conjunction is or how long it would be on the new moon day. So those articles are good to cover too. Probably not answering any questions, but we're just having discussion. Everybody kind of has to study for themselves and make decisions.
Well, I got one more little one.
Go ahead.
Something that can be helpful, because I've been trying to, even just practicing with the charts, I want to just say, well, I believe this chart is right, but I want to, it's like in Michigan, you know that at least 50% of the time when you go out to look a lot, you're not going to see it. But so I want to confirm and practice and think of what these folks were doing. I mean, they really did have the time. Like if you camped out for a week in a tent, you know that you get up, you go to bed, you don't have electricity, and so you got a lot of time to look at these things, because that's a whole different lifestyle. So certainly they were looking in both the morning and the night. And when you know that conjunction is coming, look at your moon in the morning, and you will watch the last sliver go away. And that also helps you to confirm like when conjunction is going to happen, because in the morning you'll see you're watching the last sliver go away.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Keith. So, yeah, thank you. That's correct. Okay, well, we'll go maybe a little bit further in the discussion, and then I hope everyone will kind of go and read some more articles and studies about it, because We do have the internet right now. I do look and see when conjunction is, and then depending if we're on standard time or daylight savings time, subtract 4 or 5 hours from that to find out the exact time of conjunction, and then the following daylight or very first dawn is new moon day. But there are several on the call that only look at just the phases and don't go by the dawn after conjunction. So we agree to gather together in fellowship, even if sometimes we do have different opinions. But we'll go ahead and read Genesis 1. This is a short article. We're almost at the end right now. We'll kind of maybe go through it a little bit more, because they will have maybe a better explanation. I am not an expert. I am learning every day, just like everybody on the call is. We're all learning together. And we are wanting to be patient with one another. And learning to look up, like Brother Keith says. You can go out in the morning and see that very last sliver on the last part of the moon. And also, I wanted to say, in Israel's time, it was always 30-day months. After day 29 of the Sabbath, they knew day 30 was transition day, part of the old month, part of the new month. Day 1 was the beginning of their month. It was perfect every month. And the quarter phases were always 7 days. So the calendar Israel had was always perfect. They had day 30, transition day, day 1, new moon day, 6 working days and Sabbath, 6 working days and Sabbath, and the phases were always perfect. But what happened was the calendar got dented in the 700 BC time period, and so our calendar is a little bit different than Israel's was, because if it was always a 30-day month, we wouldn't have to worry about discrepancies. And so we'll just go forward, I guess. Genesis 1, darkness, an actual segment of time, preceded day 1 of creation week. And that is to say that the very first day of the very first month in Earth's history was dark. No light preceded this day. Why should we expect subsequent months to be any different? And here's the quote, Genesis 1, 1-3. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And would someone like to read the next 3 paragraphs? Christine or Ellie, maybe. Ellie, you said you have that. Do you have Ezekiel 46 in front of you there on this article?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Ezekiel 46:1 establishes that there are 3 different types of days. 1 is new moon days, 2 is work days, 3 is Sabbath days. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, the gateway of the inner court that faces towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and on the day of the new moon it shall be opened. See Ezekiel 46, verse 1. It stands to reason that the different classes of days would be delineated in nature, or other words, creation in brackets, when reckoning the dawn after conjunction as the commencement of new moon day. We find that each type of day is generally marked by specific moon phases. Number 1, new moon day is preceded by darkness, conjunction. 2, work days are preceded by the illuminating phases, excluding the quarter phases. 3, Sabbath days are preceded by the quarter phases. Thus, this method makes consistently identifying the Sabbath by the moon's appearance much easier and more practical. It seems that creation itself testifies to this method of reckoning.
Okay, so new moon day is preceded by darkness, and work days have illumination on the moon, and then the quarter phases announce Sabbath. I guess that's the end of the article. Finally, brethren, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Okay, well, any comments about that? And we did just do also another YouTube about 3 types of days. It's out there on the YouTube channel. But there's 3 types of days: new moon, work days, and Sabbath. And this is saying it was darkness preceded the day for new moon day at conjunction time. Any comments or questions? And there's other people that can answer. I don't have to know all the answers, and I'm afraid I don't know all the answers. So, but any questions or objections?
This is Ellie. So conjunction really is the dark phase, and the dawn means the first dawn of the morning after the dark phase. Then that would be the new moon day. Is that what I'm understanding this to say?
Yes. Like, yes, if conjunction happened at 1 in the morning, it is still dark, but new moon day would be the very first light. That would be new moon day following conjunction. If conjunction happened yesterday at 1 in the afternoon, the next dawn would have been this morning at daylight. So it can't be during a daylight, because that would be part of the old day and part of the old month and part of the new month. So it has to be a new start, a new day for a new month is new moon day. It's not part of the old month. But would anybody else like to explain or discuss that more than me?
Well, I'll pipe up here, and I know this is another pitfall or place where people get excited. Depending on whether you're looking at it from the old classical orbit situation, or if you're looking at it from a flat Earth perspective, which I know is a big issue. But in the orbital perspective, the moon is going around the Earth, and the sun, of course, it's hard to explain this way because the Earth is supposedly rotating, and what you see is not necessarily the moon moving or the sun moving. Of course, it's that motion. But the moon approaches the sun, but its orbit is wobbles, so it can go to the left of the sun or to the right of the sun on a given month. If it crosses directly in front of the sun, then you get a shadow from the sun, and that's your eclipse. But if you put a line across the sun, as soon as the moon crosses that line, that is called conjunction. So an ideal conjunction is the moon actually moves in front of the sun and you get an eclipse. But if it's off to one side, we just say as soon as it passes that line. That is the actual instant of conjunction. And then sometime later, possibly, I forget, 24 hours later or something, you will then be able to see, as the moon now moves away, you'd be able to see the light slipping around the side of the moon where you begin to see the first crescent. I hope that was somewhat helpful.
Okay, and I have a little bit of a picture of that up here. It's not real clear, but showing the new moon would be dark there, and then the crescent has a little bit of the light on it. But anybody else have a comment or anything about what Brother Pete said, or your own comment or question? Thank you for that explanation. And I know Brother Joseph is with us, and he gave us a great talk about the clock in the heavens. And do you have any comments, Brother Joseph? Are you still with us there? I hate to call on anybody, but I know you're knowledgeable, and there's quite a few here on the call today. Anybody else? Yeah. Anybody else have a comment or a question? Okay. All right. Well,
Barb?
Yes, go ahead.
Well,
Yes, Susan.
there is a song that I sang out of the old hymnal last Sabbath, and it is totally about the shepherd. It would go along with Keith, I think. But I don't know. If there's anything, I don't need to sing it. I just thought that would be something.
Okay. Well, we'll have your shepherd song. If there's any more questions, I mean, you maybe, Ellie, you were thinking it was always crescent, was announcing our new moon day, and I did that for many years was when I was in the Messianic group, but then when I started looking more at phases and also the mariners and even on the worldly calendar, new moon day is always a black round circle, and when it shows the quarter phases, they're divided in half or full. So astronomically, new moon is usually at the beginning. It's new. There's no light on it yet. And then, like Brother Pete said, there are sighters that when they see a sliver say, okay, our new moon time is over and we're starting our week tomorrow. But I want to thank everybody for their comments, but we have time for more questions or more comments before I close the recording.
Thank you again, Barb.
Okay, well, hold on then, and I'll put some of these links below, and I'll send them out on the recording link for those of you that are receiving the emails every week. And I guess I'll close the recording, and maybe there's some questions that the group would like to ask. So just please stick around, and our Sabbath will be on Wednesday now for 4 weeks in a row. And we'll be back, I believe it's December 4. And let's see. So I just want to say shalom, shalom. Thank you, everyone, and all those that your presence was on the line. And please stay around just a minute. Shalom, shalom.